Welcome to the MongoDB Podcast Live. I'm Jesse Hall in for Mike Lynn, and today we have an amazing stream lined up for you. Before we get to that, just wanted to do some quick housekeeping. If you are in the chat, be sure to say hi. Let us know where you're from, what's going on, what are you interested in. We're going to be talking about AI today, so let's keep the communication going. If you have any questions, just put that in the chat. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. And I also wanted to invite you to New York City. If you are in New York City on May the 1st or 2nd, we're going to be there at .local NYC. On the 1st, we're going to have some Developer Day workshops. On the 2nd, we'll have the main event. And if you want to sign up, use this coupon code Community50 to get 50% off. I'll leave that up for just a bit. So today we're going to be talking about Patronus AI, and we have a special guest, Rebecca, who is the co-founder and CTO there. So let's find out what is Patronus AI and how can we use it and how is it helpful in the AI industry. So let me bring Rebecca on. Welcome, Rebecca. How are you?
Hi, Jesse. Everyone. Yeah, happy to be here.
Amazing.
I can do a quick intro. So I'm Rebecca. I'm one of the founders of Patronus AI. I previously was a researcher at Meta AI, also known as Fair Labs, where I worked on all sorts of NLP applications, ranging from developing Meta's internal version of Copilot back in 2017 to building semantic parsing models for robot assistants, evaluating conversational agents, training LLMs to be more fair and robust, but recently leading alignment as part of the MLP scaling team. So this is a team that released Llama, Llama 2, Bunnerbot, etc. So I've been really passionate about this problem of just, as models scale, how can we understand where they're failing, what they're good at, what they're not good at. This problem of language model understanding and evaluation. And from 2020 onwards, I'm passionate about responsible AI and shaping the vision there for Meta, and have been really excited to Patronus. Ever since ChatGPT's release, we just kept hearing from enterprises that they were worried about hallucinations, they're worried about unexpected outputs, that language models were not deterministic, it was difficult to control. I'm sure all of us here have experienced similar situations where you enter a question to ChatGPT or another LLM, and you get, sometimes it works, but sometimes the results are totally unexpected, and they can really fail in sometimes surprising ways. The responses might also sound confident, they might not be correct. So this is a space that I and others in the team have been passionate about for many years, including my co-founder Anand, who I was at Meta with, and excited to dive in today and talk about evaluation, some of the challenges that companies are facing, how we're working with MongoDB, really excited our partnership, and especially with Atlas Search, which we're really complementary with, and happy to also answer any questions folks may have.
Yeah, for sure. So let's take a step back there and really define what the issue that we're trying to solve is. So Patronus AI is an automated AI evaluation platform, right? And so what is it solving? What was that the story behind it, how it was formed and what it's trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So the story of how it was formed is when ChatGPT was released, we just heard that enterprises were rushing to ban the product, and Anand and I were playing around with it and just saw the potential and the number of use cases that we anticipated. At the same time, saw just a lot of fear and hesitancy, and it was an area that we both had expertise in. Like him and Meta Reality Labs and me at Meta AI Research, and we just knew that this was going to be the #1 blocker to generative AI adoption, and it still is. And in terms of where we come in and how we help the problem we're solving, so evaluation is is challenging for LLMs specifically because the input space is infinite, and especially with the amount of use cases that we're seeing for LLMs, like what we're using language models for is not the same as data that they were trained on. And what we do see is we see, every time like a new language model is released, we see these data points around like academic benchmarks. But a model doing well on a middle school reasoning and science test does not mean that it will do well in your application, whether it's a chat assistant for your e-commerce store, or like a financial analyst assistant, or writing SQL queries for internal applications. There's just this long right tail of what we're using language models for, and that's also why we are seeing that there's so much unexpected behavior, because the models that were developed were not necessarily developed with these use cases in mind. And so some of the problems that we see are, for example, hallucinations, like models producing outputs that are not grounded in the context that you give it. Other issues are more safety oriented, like, for example, you could be leaking PII, you could be leaking business sensitive information, you could have outputs that are toxic or unsafe. Like, for example, if you ask, an LLM about some illegal topics, it might actually give you responses or instructions that might not be suitable, or something as simple as it might be recommending a competitor's product. So there's really this range of human preferences, and what we do is we help you evaluate the models, and do this both in like a pre-deployment and a real-time setting. So that you can control and mitigate these failures happening in production.
Awesome. So enterprises, understandably, are hesitant when it comes to these different models because of all of these issues that you've brought up, and this is where Patronus AI comes in to help it become more safe, evaluating these different issues, these hallucinations, and all these other topics that you brought up. So how does that evaluation actually work? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we take an ensemble approach, which means that there are different what we call evaluators. We have a different algorithm or mechanism powering it. So one example of an evaluator is PII. And so for this, we actually host our own model where we detect, instances of like phone numbers, addresses, medical license numbers, social security numbers, etc. Another example of a set of evaluators that we support is more retrieval-based evaluators that actually use LLMs under the hood. And also this is something that I'm happy to dive a bit more into and show a demo later, because it's very relevant to our partnership with MongoDB. Just you test retrieval systems, which are quite complex, and we have a taxonomy where we break it down into whether the context is relevant, whether the model is hallucinatory, like whether it's faithful to the context that we provided, whether the answer is relevant, etc.
Nice. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. What is the partnership between Patronus AI and MongoDB look like? What how does it integrate there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to actually share screen and just show the architect diagram.
Yeah, we
If that's
love show and tell for sure.
awesome. Yeah, let me just.
By the way, hi everyone on the stream. If you have any questions as we go, be sure to put them in the chat, and we will get to those.
Awesome. Can you see my screen here?
Yeah, let me share that with everyone. There we go. Nice.
Awesome.
So if you could zoom just a little bit more. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So this is a diagram of how enterprises use Patronus AI with MongoDB Vector Store. And so this is a pretty typical RAG setup where you have your data sources. So this might be off-the-shelf test sets that we generate, Patronus, or live user queries, and this comes from your AI application. And so the way that enterprises use MongoDB, for example, is so you have the user query in, and then you actually embed those queries and you store it with MongoDB Atlas. And MongoDB has MongoDB Atlas Vector Search, which allows you to do like similarity-based search, which we're super excited by. And you can also embed and index documents in a more offline manner. And so what we like about MongoDB is this colocality, like being able to store the vectors, the application data itself, because before this, you would have to store, like, people were already storing application data with DB, but having to store the vectors separately, that introduces the synchronization cost. And so now you can store everything in one place in MongoDB Atlas. And so this is what you use to like ingest, index, query, retrieve document checks. So where Patronus comes in is then we have this evaluation and security layer using our API. And so when you get the user query and then you get the retrieve context from your vector store with MongoDB, you also get the LLM output out of your AI application. And you can test this against our API on a range of evaluation criteria. So some examples are hallucination, answer relevance. We mentioned some safety ones like PII, but there's also a lot of custom criteria that we support, like, for example, whether the output is in a concise tone of voice, or whether the output is in a specific topic, or whether it's appropriate to your particular like age group. So there's a lot of different criteria that you might care about, and this sits on top of the vector store results. And this allows you to create this feedback loop where you can iterate and refine and improve your AI applications so that it becomes more performant and reliable over time.
Nice. Perfect. Are you sure you don't work for MongoDB? Because you like did that presentation perfectly. Like our main value prop for this is you keep your operational data alongside your vector data. Why separate the two and have that overhead of having to keep everything in sync? It's perfect. Perfect use case, and I love how seamlessly this integrates. It's amazing. So
absolutely.
Oh, sorry. There was a little bit of a delay there. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying I don't work for MongoDB, but no, absolutely, that is, yeah, what we're seeing is there's more and more of an emphasis these days on scalability and latency and just performance metrics. I think when LLMs were first released, there were more of the focus attention was on accuracy, but now that more and more AI applications are shipping to production use cases, like there's more of a focus on that trade-off, where in some cases people are willing to trade off even accuracy for infrastructure improvements.
Yeah, awesome. Is evaluation and benchmarking the same thing? Are those interchangeable, or are those different things?
Yeah, great question. So benchmarking is a subset of evaluation. So Patronus provides an end-to-end evaluation framework, which includes everything from test set generation, like the very first instance when you say, okay, I have an AI application that I want to test. What's an example of an input I can give it to see how it behaves, and then specifying criteria that you care about, through to having insights and like a monitoring dashboard that we support. So this is really this overarching workflow, and our goal is to be the one platform that you use for everything for evaluation. So benchmarking is one of the features that we provide, and benchmarking is more around like how can I compare performance across models, across maybe like different retrieval architectures, different systems, and so there's a bunch of what you can think is like different knobs to turn, and there's a bunch of different knobs you can turn. For example, you can try out, like, it feels like new language models are being released every week this year, and so you can try out a new LLM that was released, whether it's open source or closed source. You can change the generation parameter. Even within an LLM provider, there's different model versions. Like, for example, GPT-4 released a new model version every 2 weeks. Those versions can have a significant, significantly impact the performance on your use case. So it's important to do this kind of benchmarking. With Retrievers, also a bunch of different different parameters that you can set as well. For example, like the chunk size or chunking strategy. And so benchmarking just refers to the ability to compare performance over time and across like different experimentation configs.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but can you can use any model, like Patronus AI is model agnostic, basically?
Right. Yeah, it is
Mhm.
absolutely model agnostic. And what we also like about this architecture here is that if you look at this, it's also like MongoDB is also agnostic to like many design decisions in your AI application. So like you can plug in any LLM of your choice. It could be even something that you develop in-house.
Nice, nice. So let's talk a little bit more about the benchmarking. I think it's very important, but how do your benchmarks work differently than others? I think that there's I don't know the I think that your benchmarks are closed. Would you say, right? So that others can't kind of cheat on the test, that sort of thing. Like, if a model knows what the benchmarks are that they need to hit, then they can kind of train their model to hit those key points, but then they're not really passing the benchmarks. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. So what we saw just from the past years, there's a lot of people training on test data sets, which is absolutely not good practice, and it really does dilute the significance of the trustworthiness of benchmarks. And at the same time, there are academic benchmarks that are still being used for models that are being deployed in real-world cases on completely different data distributions. And so we really believe in dynamic benchmarking because data drift over time, and also having closed enterprise-specific benchmarks. So one example of this is we released the Enterprise Scenarios Leaderboard in partnership with Hugging Face, and that was novel because we chose to have some of the data sets be closed source. And this is something that users have actually reached out and said that they really appreciated, because it was not only enterprise focused, but also more trustworthy because the data sets were hidden. Something else we had developed and actually wrote a blog on this with MongoDB is Finance Bench. And so this was the industry first large-scale financial question answering benchmark, and consisted of 10,000 question answer pairs, handwritten by financial analysts on over SEC filings, like public filings. And this is a benchmark that companies have been using to evaluate their financial assistant LLMs, and to benchmark the performance of LLMs on a domain-specific data set. And you really do see that there's a big difference when you're benchmarking on test sets and like domain-specific, like real-world user queries, as opposed to like some of the academic data sets that people have public access to.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to really hit on. There is a lot of times in the developer community, we talk about open source things, right? But the fact that the benchmarks themselves are closed source means that nobody can cheat on the test. They don't know the questions that they're trying to answer there, and that really makes Patronus AI much more reliable, and the quality is going to be much better because it's closed. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. So yeah, that's a good point, which is with open source, there are trade-offs, and with the research community, it started with a lot of these popular open source sets, including Superglue, and now we're seeing more of a shift towards closed source, and you actually see this with LLMs as well, where there's now a mix of like closed and open source models, whereas a couple of years ago it was primarily open source.
Hmm. And that also kind of helps along with the lines of ethical use of AI, along with these testing and evaluations, where again they're not just passing the tests that they know they should pass and then failing the others under the radar. They're really being evaluated properly in this instance, which is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, ethical responsible AI is something that we care about deeply as a team, and it's not just in terms of just like safety. It's also just like being liable to your users and providing accurate information, making sure that like for example, Air Canada type incidents don't happen. So yeah, there's been more and more incidents like that in the news lately, and we want to prevent that from happening.
For sure. That's great. Do you have any like demos or code examples or any other things that would kind of help us understand how this fits into the tech stack and what its capabilities are? Sorry, I know
Yeah, absolutely.
you were sharing your
Yeah,
screen and then
absolutely. I can share my screen. So okay, let me first just share a code snippet.
okay, awesome. Again, audience, thank you for joining us. We're talking about Patronus AI evaluation tool. And if you have any questions along the way, post them in the chat and we'll answer them as we go.
Okay, let me see if I can share my Visual Studio. So I think by default it just shares Chrome and not my VS Code.
You should be able to share a specific window, and it should allow you to share VS Code. It should be one of the options. Otherwise, you do have the option of sharing the entire screen. Just be careful of what you might have on the screen. Don't want to share anything sensitive. This is live.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think it should be. I'll share my screen briefly.
Awesome. All right.
Can you see my screen here?
Yeah, I see VS Code. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So this is yeah, just an example of a demo where you can use MongoDB Atlas with the Patronus API, and also using Llama Index to ingest the document. So in the case you have, we already have deployed a test cluster to MongoDB Atlas. So you replace the URI with your username and password and cluster identifier, etc. What we are doing here is simply we're using Llama Index to connect to this MongoDB instance, and then to actually chunk up this PDF that we're loading, which is a McDonald's C10K filing. So this is actually one of the documents we used in Finance Bench. So we're taking it, and then we are loading the nodes and creating new documents in the vector store in Atlas. And so, yeah, so you see here we have a couple example user queries, and so this is handled by Llama Index in this case, where it directly connects to an LLM, in this case GPT-4, and we have a separate environment variable that we've set outside of this, where it's the OpenAI API key. And some of the queries are about like what's the quantity of restructuring costs. So this is from Finance Bench. There is an open sample Finance Bench, by the way, of 150 questions and answers on Hugging Face. So you're welcome to check that out and try it out. What operating margin change for the fiscal year 2022 for McDonald's. But also, here's a question that I just threw in here that is not related to finance. Just MongoDB Atlas, the best vector DB.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. Here, we're just querying this, going over the user queries, and then querying the LLM, the RAG system that uses an LLM under the hood. And then that should get you the responses end to end. And so now we're looking at the portion of the diagram that you just saw, where we're querying Patronus API. And as you see it, this sits on top. It can also be embedded, like per query and done live. And here we're just going over the results that we just got, and we are testing a couple of different criteria. So, for example, assessing whether the results are postatory, whether the context is relevant, because if the context is irrelevant, then there is no way that the end result would actually be correct, because the context you're feeding in doesn't even contain the correct information. Whether the answer is relevant. And we also have two what we call custom criteria, which is whether the tone of voice is concise, and whether the topic is about finance. So in this case, this is something that you can define in our platform, and I can show you what that looks like in a bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where do you define those custom ones?
Right. So yeah, I'll show you. So we have a files management interface, and we also have productionized a number of ML features, feedback loops that actually make this better over time.
Nice.
So we are hitting the evaluate endpoint here with the Patronus API. And so you see it's just a couple lines of code, like one post request, to be able to have this reliability layer in your RAG system. And we also have a couple of other parameters here. We're able to add an app name and a couple of tags. So I've created a MongoDB demo app. And we're also able to populate some tags, like some metadata about this particular query, this use case. In this case, I put in the company name, the vector store, the LLM, doc type, etc.
Nice.
So let me just switch the screen share so that I can. So I can show you what this looks like in the application.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's relatively short, like not many lines of code to just add that in and then get that evaluation. I'd like, show us that application, and then also, like, what is the output? What does that look like after you've run it through, and like, what do you get back from Patronus?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me show the. Let me show what this looks like in our dashboard. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's a little, if you can zoom in a little bit, that'd be great, if that's possible.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's better. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, so you can see I just ran this just now, and this is in the demo app that we just created. And you can see here pass and fail. So we have this parameter that allows you to log to our dashboard, and so this is logging the results live of whether the outputs pass fail against the different criteria that we just specified. So you can, if you scroll down, you can see individual instances of your queries. So you can see here, like this example of the input, asking about the operating margin, the output of our RAG system, and also the score. So in this case, it passed the retrieval context relevance criteria. And we also have, the metadata that we just logged, and we have some additional information like a natural language explanation, explaining why it passed or failed, and some additional information around like the confidence that we have in this result.
Nice. So it passed the relevance, and the hallucination also it passed, it looks like.
Right. So what we can do is we can actually filter by different criteria and different results. So you can filter by pass or fail, and also the if you want to index on a specific criterion, or filter through the tags as well.
Nice.
So if you scroll down, you see there's some examples where it failed, and this is where it becomes interesting. Like in this case, we failed the concise tone evaluator profile. So if I just, click into evaluation profiles, you can see here there's, let me share this tab instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like it popped out into a new tab. There you go.
Right. So you can see here we have a set of criteria. As suggested earlier, you asked how do you define different criteria. So we have an interface that allows you to do this by just creating a new criterion, and you can edit and set some parameters around it. And so concise tone was something that we had predefined around making sure the output is concise and addresses the user input directly. And this is just one example of a criterion that you can specify in natural language, but there's a bunch of other ones. Just some examples around, maybe you don't want the output to refer to being from OpenAI. Maybe you don't want it to refer to questions that are not about finance, etc.
Nice. Oh, I see finance only. That's awesome.
Right.
Okay. What did it answer when you asked about MongoDB vector search, if it's the best? What did it say there?
Yes. Let me just see if that one is in here as well. So I see there's actually yeah. So I'll come back to that, but there's actually a context relevance failure here that would be really interesting for those building RAG systems. So
yes.
In this case, the result is a fail because the retrieve context.
We're still seeing the evaluation profiles screen. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect.
So so in this case, the model output is 0, but the retrieve context doesn't actually contain information about restructuring. So Right. So if you look at, if you search up restructuring, like the context can actually have information related to restructuring. And so if you're building a rack system and you're debugging, then you would realize, okay, the failure is on it's not with the base LLM, it's with the retrieval algorithm. So that's where you would go and debug. And maybe you're not including enough of the context, like maybe you need to increase like the K number, the number of documents that you're retrieving. Maybe you need to try a different similarity search algorithm, or maybe simply the correct information is just not in the PDF that you're looking at. This becomes more complicated when you're looking at a vector store with a lot of different documents as well. So for Finance Bench, we compare two settings, one with a single vector store and one with multiple vector stores. And of course, it's more difficult to retrieve the correct information when there is multiple, like a large set of documents with similar information. So this is, an example of illustrating, why it is difficult to build reliable RAG systems.
Yeah, chunking strategy could also tie in there as well, right? So there are a lot of different things that you could look at here to fix this issue.
Right, absolutely. Your like chunking strategy has a huge impact on just on the quality of the end results.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I think that covered all of those. Was there any other output that you wanted to go over besides the ones that we've looked at so far?
I can show a couple of other examples around just the retrieval evaluators, and I can also run the script that I just showed. I can also run the script that I just showed in the background, and have that example where it's the question's not about MongoDB.
I don't know if we want to know the answer or not. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think it would have answered it if there wasn't a lot of safeguards around making sure that it's difficult to constrain all outputs.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point of this evaluation, is to figure out what's working and what's not, and how to tune it in a way that that passes all your tests. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So with the AI industry, like you've already mentioned this, new models coming out all of the time. How does Patronus AI keep up to date with all of every day there's something new? So how do you keep up with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are new models coming out all the time. We're typically the first to evaluate and benchmark them. It's something that we are really excited by. We have this internal Slack channel, like a research channel, where we're just constantly sharing on research papers and new models. And we do a lot of internal benchmarking to make sure that our evaluators are state of the art. So making sure that, like, for example, if a new model comes out and there's some of our evaluators that use, LMs in the loop, that if it's better for an automated eval, then we swap it out and use that instead. And we've done this a couple times in the past, where we, for example, when Llama 2 came out, we posted this thread on Twitter that went viral on how the RLHF might have gone too far, because it was rejecting questions about like spicy mayo. We asked like whether Docker containers can be, how to kill a Docker container. It was giving responses like, I can't kill sentient beings. So we always do a lot of testing, including like adversarial testing on new models.
That's a good a good point. If the Docker container is running an AI model, would the AI consider that a sentient being?
So that's a whole separate that's a whole separate debate. I would say the how the correct response in the majority of use cases of someone asking like a chat assistant how to kill a Docker container should not be to refuse it on the grounds of ethics. So,
For sure. For sure.
yeah, I mean, ultimately it is an alignment problem, and that's also why we do exist, because we recognize that what company A wants is different from what company B wants, and what individual A thinks is acceptable is different from
Yeah.
individual B.
Awesome. So are there any like particular challenges or examples that you can think of where Patronus AI made a significant difference, like giving us like a real world example of the impact that it had there?
Yeah, definitely. So for RAG, especially like the context relevance example, so we've helped several customers identify issues with their retrieval system, because when you're like what the end user sees is just end to end, but there's actually multiple points of failure in a RAG line. Sometimes people think it's, oh, the LLM is failing, but it's actually mostly on the retrieval side. And so that's one instance where we helped a customer like improve. So that there was a bug where they were not feeding in the correct context, and the context was unstructured, so it's really difficult for humans to understand and parse. You see in our platform, there's actually like natural language explanations as well. Like if I just share my screen again, you can see there's, like, for example, this, like when you're looking at the result, like on the right side, there's also this natural language explanation. They just have to save a lot of time, because it's sometimes difficult for a human to go through and assess whether the context is correct or not. So retrieval bugs can be tricky to fix by inspection. And I really don't believe in testing in prod or by inspection. I actually wrote a blog on this where just like testing generative AI feels like just testing in prod or vibe checks, which is not a scalable way to build any engineering application.
No. It seems like everyone's trying to move so fast that maybe some are doing that, but let's normalize this and make sure that we do all of our checks before we go to prod, especially on enterprise applications.
Absolutely, yeah. It's I think that's also pretty aligned with what MongoDB has done in terms of like scalable performant architectures as well. We very much believe that like AI especially need to have security, have infrastructure investments that power AI systems, and with that, safeguards, like for example, with hallucination and PII, and just all the right tail of unexpected outputs.
Right, for sure. You don't want someone to prompt engineer something that tricks it into outputting a bunch of PII information or stuff like that. So you got to be very careful.
Right, and it's surprisingly easy to do that. Like we've seen even live user, like people using this live with like some more adversarial user queries. But it's also just even basic capabilities. It's not necessarily just people necessarily trying to break your stuff all the time. It's just even getting your AI assistant to work well can be a huge challenge, and it's difficult to do that without evaluation.
Yeah. So what advice would you give developers that are looking to integrate AI into their application, what's like the top 5 or 10 points that you'd like to tell them to be sure that they get right the first time?
Right. So my top recommendations for developers looking to build AI applications to get right is to instead of trying to ship something and patch things up after the fact, actually just to spend a bit more time upfront and investing in the architecture and system before just deploying to prod. I think really just scaffolding and for investments go a long way. And even in like when I was a researcher at FAIR, we always said that like engineering and investments make research and AI development move faster. And so having tools that allow you to do that really go a long way. Like I think sometimes people try to get trapped into this mindset of like, oh, I'll just, bootstrap a few test sets and then I'll maybe like I just built thing really scrappy and simple in house. And then one head of engineering told us that the whole team ended up becoming prompt engineers, like their eval system in house for a month. And you see the same thing with with store. There's this tendency as developers to think, oh, I'll just get something up and running quickly. And then they break, and you end up spending more time patching that. And I think what people often catches people by surprise is that so one analogy we've heard from this one engineering team for financial services institution is it feels like playing whack-a-mole because with traditional software, it's like you patch and then typically that bug doesn't happen again. But with LLMs, like fix one bug and then another would come up because when you're changing the prompt, it introduces more failures, and so it's really difficult. I sometimes people don't realize that until they're like pretty knee deep into prompt engineering already.
Yeah, and if you don't have some sort of evaluation system in place, it's impossible to find all these different bugs that are popping up. So I feel like this is one of the things that many engineering teams have, like you said, they've had to bootstrap it and build it from scratch. But it's like it's so nice to have this tool ready to go. So how to implement this in our tech stacks? Where would a developer go to get started with Patronus AI?
Yeah, so it's really simple. So you can reach out to us for access to an API key, and as you saw in the code that I showed earlier, just a couple lines of code where it's like you plug in like your into your retrieval setup, whether it's pre-production or deployment, and then all it is just passing in some example of queries and your AI system responses, and then you can just start seeing results live.
Nice. So is there any like roadmap for Patronus that you would want to talk about or bring up here? Like, what does the future look like?
Definitely, yeah. So in terms of what we're focused on right now is getting automated evaluation to be as performant and high quality and reliable as possible, and really building that trust in AI systems, helping people be able to ship AI products with confidence. And a lot of that is where our research efforts are going into as well. So we're unique in that we know eval is an open research problem and it's challenging to solve. So we do invest a lot in research and making sure that like the evaluator models that you saw just now are state of the art and really most aligned with how humans would actually score these systems. We are focused on, like I mentioned in the beginning of this live stream, just investing in infrastructure improvements as well, because there is also this trade-off between like cost and performance and latency. And so helping customers decide, okay, so there's this model that is very good, but it's slow, versus a model that's maybe slightly worse, but it's cheaper and it's faster. And you can only make those decisions if you have evaluation as well and benchmarking. And so that's where we come in, and part of that is also making sure our own evaluation API is scalable and fast and performant and just really lightweight, that you can plug in anywhere to support like live monitoring use cases. So that's where some of our engineering and research efforts are going towards as well, and also something I'm very personally excited by.
Awesome. That's great. Ever improving. You have to, like we talked about, keep up with all the new things that are coming out in the AI industry, as well as improving the evaluation process. So again, any viewers, there are, in the video description, there are links. There's a link to Patronus AI. There's also a link to a blog article that we wrote collaboratively, and you can check that out to see it in action. And anything else before we close this out? Anything else that last minute that you want to like to share, Rebecca?
I would say that we're really excited by just all the different ways that we see companies using language models, and also just even in the past year have seen more strong like open source models as well come out, and more LLM, like very competitive LLMs come out, and not from the in terms of like generative models, but also embedding models. And so that's an area that we're continuing to be excited by. Also excited by people building RAG systems and like bringing their own data, and doing things like tool use and function calling, and just more and more customization on top of LLMs. Excited for the space to continue to grow, and for this ecosystem to become richer, and of course our partnership with people providing like other critical parts of the stack, like MongoDB.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the AI industry is, you cannot be bored in the AI industry. Things change so rapidly. I mean, it was just yesterday that, ChatGPT came out, and it's just, every month, every week, really, there's something new. So also looking forward to what people build. There's some amazing things that at initial glance thought I would not have ever, thought to create these things, and people are creating these amazing applications and products with AI, and exciting to see where it goes as well, along with Patronus AI. So again, just want to thank you, Rebecca, for joining us. Anything last minute, and then we'll go ahead and close this one out.
Thank you for having me, and feel free to reach out to me for any of the listeners today. If you have questions, you can also reach us at contact@Patronusai. Really enjoyed this discussion. Thanks, Jesse.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Again, audience links in the video description. Check that out. And we'll see you next time. Thank you all.